Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Featuring today a 2 versus 2 on McGechaens or McGechaens or Mac somethings. McBeardyface, for all I know. I do know the guy who made it has a beard, so McBeardyface it is. We shall be watching Carlosred 17 and Dontstoptheparty fighting for the Allies, fighting for the Americans and the Commonwealth. We should imagine, though, this is an American thrust being somehow supported by the British, which I suppose could have been happening somewhere during the Falaise gap situation. Opposing them those shall be AsiiDeathblow and SOLHillstreetblues, fighting for the Wehrmacht, trying to break out with the remainders of the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte. One of 3 bodyguard units throughout the war that actually saw action. The Leibstandarte was the first. The other 2, though, were not actually SS units, but nonetheless were in the very later stage of the war. First formed into panzer brigades, and then later on into full panzer divisions and thrown at the enemy. Points are being secured, and obviously right here we can see where the British are going to be initially focusing, right here on the fuel points, and also a nice spot for British player. We have nice bocage essentially forming a small fortress, which is definitely going to make it very difficult for an attacker to move in towards this area. And we do see, looks like the Wehrmacht is slowly but surely moving towards that area. We're seeing some full guns out for Deathblow and some full guns out for SOLHillstreetblues. So nice infantry push. Bike, and we are seeing the Bren carrier out with a recce section in it. Well, jeep actually, not a bike, damn you, Dane. And going to push rather aggressively towards the Germans, launching the first blow to perhaps throw the German assault off its guard. Of German advance, anyways. And there we go, one pioneer already drops. The Volkskas, though, continue to the west, and we do see a swift retreat from the Allies. The Jeep already down to less than half health. No, the Volkskas slightly stopped. In fact, they're laying down sandbags quite quickly right in the middle over here, establishing a fortified position to slowly hold the fuel point, of course, also advance further from. So far so good. MG40 up for Deathblow, another squad of full screens from SOLHillstreetblues. Bren carrier switches towards another route. Wehrmacht making slow progress on the right hand side, but solid nonetheless. Not quite as delayed in the west, though that might soon change. We do see the Jeep and now the Bren carrier charging forward with killing crouch in mind. And there we go, the pioneer squad is quickly pushed away. Headquarters command truck is advancing. The glory of the Commonwealth, while an infantry section moves up very slowly towards the central area. And there we go, the Bren carrier swings back. The Wehrmacht advances towards here. Will soon be there, although they will soon be attacked from the rear by that Bren carrier. More Volksguns advancing from SOLHillstreetblues. And the MG42 also moving. And there we go, the Volksguns inside the house here coming under fire. We are seeing the Brits quickly popping out. We're seeing a Vickers being upgraded on the Bren carrier. The Volksguns are moving up. The pioneers mine there just in case. Buying out for Deathblow, but that's so far not moving up to support all of this, which be, you know, the perhaps logical thing. But we are seeing the Brits quickly moving on. We are seeing a lieutenant, not a lieutenant, on the way for Carlosred 17. And looks like he's planning something here. And there we go, the Vickers is up. Infantry being held up here, Volkskas moving in. And there we go, we are seeing a mortar emplacement going down from Carlosred 17. That will allow him to rather control this area. And it's going to be very difficult for the Wehrmacht to attack, because, I mean, they're going to have to attack through very narrow roads. And there's going to be these areas where the British can essentially block out the Wehrmacht and leaving them exposed to the mortar. Though we do see the bike moving in to harass, but they will need more than one bike, I fear. They will need the infantry, and for some reason, the Wehrmacht are leaving all the infantry to deal with the Bren carrier instead of moving them in to try and harass the mortar emplacement going down. Oh dear, that could definitely be a bit of fumble right there for the Wehrmacht, for the good boys of the 1st SS. MGs, though, are switching about. Engineers are getting cut down by the Wehrmacht. Brits are advancing, and so are the Americans. There we go, getting suppressed by the MG42. But 2 MG42s, in fact, unleashing a storm of bullets. And there we go, the 3-inch mortar emplacement goes up for the British, going to be raining death upon the Axis forces as they are trying to make an advance. At the same time, looks like a pioneer squad has been captured up here, unable to get back apparently. And looks like the Wehrmacht has otherwise clumped most of its forces right here. Now they're going to be under a mortar rain, which is definitely going to make it very difficult for the Wehrmacht to make any real progress, I fear. At least not without suffering heavy casualties. And there we go, mortar rounds already catches poor Heinz, leaving him a bit broken. More on the way from the Wehrmacht quarters, at least for Deathblow. That looks like SOLHillstreetblues might have something else in mind. Bunker going up for SOLHillstreetblues, likely going to be a medic bunker. More mortar fire, things quieten down a bit. The Wehrmacht are shifting their axis of attack. The pioneers continue to be held up inside there, not quite liking the situation. Rifle grenades up for Carlosred. And we are seeing the field support truck already has arrived. No surprises there. Likely Carlosred is going to be going for some armor as swiftly as possible. Wehrmacht advance seems to be stalling here, as it is here. Not really going good for the Wehrmacht. Seems like only 3 squads of full gunners, meaning there's going to be a bit of a lack of something that can actually push forward. So we see the mine going off there, suppressing and killing some McGechaens. We are seeing rifle grenades flying over the hedges. And mortar rounds going down on the bike. Quite a bit of manpower being flown. Let's go look at Dontstoptheparty, if I can select him. 4 rifle squads and a jeep. Quite a heavy tier 1. It looks like we are seeing a slight flanking attempt going on here. Although we do see the forces quickly moving in. The MG42 switching about. But the Wehrmacht is getting more and more contained as the Allies are progressing left and right. There we go, the riflemen are pushed away with severe casualties inflicted upon them by the troops. Bike here getting rifle grenaded. Rifle grenades were not something unique to the British. All sides used them. In fact, the Germans also used them. They even had rifle anti-tank grenades. A bit of a practice actually to the Panzerfaust. Oh, the Brenko charges forward, hits a mine, destroyed engine, though we do quickly see some self-repairs going up. The lieutenant is just waiting about here. Lieutenant Jones. Apparently thinking he's a bit clever here, pretending he's taking the point. Oh, there we go. Good job, Lieutenant. Volker advancing straight into a wreckage section, waiting in the middle of the crossroads. The Wehrmacht, though, for some reason pulls back on that. We're seeing some support units moving up. A bit of MG and sniper from Deathblow. And again, around, it seems like the Wehrmacht advance has largely stalled, and the Americans are quickly pushing back the Germans, saying, wait, although the Lieutenant could go down here. And looks like he makes it by the skin of his teeth. And going in assault there. Bike goes down, right from there, getting stalled by an MG42 laid down by Deathblow. So that's 2 MGs from Deathblow by the looks of it. Though we do see some minor forces being shifted towards the right hand side. The pioneers are still waiting there, and looks like the Jeep will get both of them. I think SOLHillstreetblues might have forgotten completely about it. Oh, he's just thinking that's just going to be worth the sacrifice of basically keeping that Jeep up there all the time. A bit weird, though. A bit weird. And there we go, the pioneers finally die. Took long enough. Brenko, though, swiftly pushing back despite the heavy damage inflicted upon the mine. It was quickly rushed back into the action. There were a few Brenko variants actually throughout the war. There was one called the Wasp, which had a flamethrower. There was even one equipped with a small anti-tank gun for the earlier stages of the war. Plus, of course, there was the German Panzerjäger Bren, which was heavily equipped with Panzerschrecks. Pioneers, though, coming under fire from the Jeep, now unleashed, ready to hunt down unsuspecting Germans once more. But the Allies are definitely doing quite a well job. I mean, just note the amount of forces just held up here. They could easily be pushing up right here, in fact, do some much damage, but they're just not moving, and that's definitely just a waste of all the infantry. I mean, there's no point in having that many squads standing about doing nothing in that small an area. There's a larger amount of territory which could be seized through the proper application of Wehrmacht attacking.
To all units, light vehicles may now.
Though we do see an armoured car now rolling out for Deathblow. Perhaps going to try and break the stalemate a bit there. British troops coming under fire. They don't quite have anything that can actually stop the armoured car, although there's a Stuart light tank nearby. But will it react swiftly and timely enough to support the troops? Nope, we are seeing a full retreat right there, though the Stuart now is advancing forwards, breaking through the fences. At the same time, the Volkers are in a bit of trouble as they're going to get hunted down by several squads of riflemen. There we go. Stuart light tank approaches. Canister shot goes off, but only gives a light shave to the Grenadiers. And not a very good one either.
Enemy unit down.
And looks like some pioneers trying to mine went down to a mortar round. A bit unfortunate. But basically, I mean, Carlosred has just been mortaring this area constantly since it's pretty much bound to hit something that's going to move there, or likely there even. But let's go look at Deathblow, who's a bit short on things at the moment. They haven't got no pioneers. Calling in a Nebelwerfer. And there we go, the British advance now supported by a Stuart light tank. It's going to be a lot harder to hold up, although we do see a pack moving up. Sniper awfully close to the danger. Recce section could get him. Pack though set up to now be able to cover. Not entirely sure what Stuart is doing there, trying to perhaps break a hole in the bocage, I think. Which is a bit of an odd thing to do, but there you go. Victory point on the right-hand side falling. I mean, the British are currently holding most of the victory points. In fact, having not lost a single one yet. And we're now seeing Hellcats out for Don't Stop the Party. Really knocking it up a notch. Armor cars definitely going to be in trouble. And artillery now ranging in from Carlosred 17. A dense rain of artillery. And looks like the Hellcat is having some severe trouble actually hitting anything. Apparently having had too much of the moonshine there. British are quickly resecuring the centre with some sappers leading the way. Nebelwerfer advancing out a bit closely, needs to be careful. Artillery could very much knock it out. It looks like a Sturmgeschütz is out for Deathblow now. Veteran 2 up for SOLHillstreetblues infantry. And the pack went down to a direct hit from the 25-pounder gun. Pioneers here fighting, laying down mines. Deathblow continues to try and lay down mines in slightly not good mining spots. And MG42 here getting assaulted by British infantry and the Brenker. Rifle grenades flying and very much threatening to completely wipe the squad out.
Losing a second.
More artillery straight into the crossroads. Lightly interdiction artillery in this case, hoping to catch something moving up. Brenker here running into a bit of trouble. Straight into the pack. Although the pack seems to have missed the first shot. But now there's a Stug going to take care of that. Brenker moving in. And Stug secures the kill. Brenker annihilated. American infantry marching in from the north. Stuart light tank moving in from the west. There's only a pack of bit of everything else to sort of hold it up. Lighter fighting going on for the right hand side where Hellcat is causing havoc. Although we do see a nice American infantry force now moving in. Pioneer went down to a direct hit from the Hellcat. Again, Deathblow seems very intent on mining and ends up losing a Pioneer squad in a bit of a silly way on it. And still only one squad of infantry from Deathblow. Not entirely sure that's a good thing. More artillery. Straight towards here. Hits a mine. Very close hitting all of this. But looks like they all make it out of there reasonably safe. Victory points though shall be soon begin ticking down again. Another Nebelwerfer rolls out for Deathblow. And a Kampfkraft center now goes up for him. MP40 equipped false guns quickly pulling up behind an old oak tree. Where's it birch? I'm not entirely sure. I've never been huge on trees. MP40 fire being exchanged with the Rifleman's M1 Garand, and the MP40s win the day as the Riflemen close in to try and get off a grenade. They did not quite succeed. And then we go pushing through the cemetery, hoping to add a few more occupants to it. But we do see a mighty push through from the Hellcats through the northern cemetery entrance, threatening to undermine and crush the Volksgrenadiers. The Wehrmacht, though, is a bit spread out at the moment, and again, it's not quite helping. The Deathblow is lacking a bit of infantry. In the meanwhile, it rather looks like that his teammate is focusing largely on Tier 2. There's some veterancy for that. He could, for example, consider going for a Panzer command and getting some Panzers to advance, well, support his advances. Lieutenant getting pushed away by the armor car, though quickly running into some sappers with Piet, and there we go, heavy damage inflicted. Nebelwerfer rockets laying down a thick cover of rockets to try and keep off the British infantry from advancing too far or too quickly. Overall effect, though, seems to have been limited. It's a bit quickly advanced, nonetheless, undeterred by the rockets. And we see actually an armoured command track up here for Carlosred 17. Although it looks like, again, I mean, this is a bit more vulnerable, but largely the Wehrmacht's not doing anything except now. As SOLHillstreetblues advance, and let's go look at SOLHillstreetblues. We also looks like we have a Stug moving in here to try and take advantage of this, though he should be careful. Sniper out for Don't Stop the Party. We are seeing that Don't Stop the Carlosred, by the way, is unpacking his armoured command truck. We see the Stug moving in, taking a hit though from the side of the from the Cromwell. Grenadiers doing what they can, and we do see the Hellcats quickly rushing in. They see a nice target, a Stug send in on its own with no veterans, nothing to protect the flanks. I mean, that's pretty much game over. Stug goes out of control and crashes into this. I'm not entirely sure if this is a notary store or something like that. Either way, it's gone. At the same time, we are seeing a lighter force going up here. Only thing really holding it back is some armored cars, snipers and whatnot else. But looks like they are nonetheless having success in keeping back the British from going too far, trying their best to secure the centre, even going for the right hand side. Grenadiers spread over a bit over the place, but we do see the 5 infantry squads are out for SOLHillstreetblues. He's gone defensive though. I think I would have liked to see Terror or Blitzkrieg from him, and I'd also like to see a Panzer command, so you can that way move on to something that could put on some proper pressure on the Allies. And they continue to fire around this point, and that mortar emplacement, I wager, continues to be a nuisance, a threat, a malignant tumor. And more artillery flies in, hoping to find something here, but the field has largely been abandoned.
We're losing territory. And
the command truck goes down for Carlosred. And the 25-pounder gun continues to fire away. Looks... no. Hellcats are quick to react. Firestorm went in here, sent away most of the British infantry, but the Hellcats are going to react and force away that armoured car. And looks like, though, they are having some luck in controlling now the right and more centre sides. That is good. Victory points to continue to tick down. More on the way from Normandy. More veterans on the way for Deathblow. And more veterancy for SOLHillstreetblues as well as infantry. Now veterans 3, thus being tougher. But again, would like to see some Panzersman here. Sniper gets a Grenadier though. Veterans does nothing against that. Engineers went down to a severe fire from the machine gun. Sherman holding up the Grenadiers while he's trying to. Gets a kill there. Rifle moving in to hit the flank. Sniper gets another. And there we go. The Grenadiers are sent away with considerable casualties. Two snipers out for Don't Stop the Party. He reveals them right in front of the German sniper, but Deathblow is not paying attention and thus missing an opportunity to counter-snipe easily several snipers. That was... oh dear, he must be a bit swearing at himself now if he actually paid notice to that. Grenadier down, and then we go, gets a sniper, but his own sniper is now exposed. Misses though, misses, but the sniper is running past rifle with the BR stack very much, and ugly no, he manages somehow to get out of there alive. Quite impressive. Germans are making a bit of a return now, thanks to the Niederwerfers and the Stugs. That does not mean they are out of the woods yet. Grenadier squad reformed, adding in more. My goodness, he's got 5 squads of Grenadiers now, 2 false Grenadiers. Hellcats still flanking the Stugs. Packs firing away, that could definitely actually be against. Don't Stop the Party, who is quick to switch on Allied War Machine when he realises he can't win this. This is actually a good usage of Allied War Machine, but also, of course, an indicator that he's got armour. But, you know, you don't use it just to throw away units, but you use it when you realise, my goodness, I'm going to lose units. I might as well try to avoid doing that. There's a slight difference there. And what implies you're actually quite fond of having veterancy for your units, which also means you can think a bit further than the next 5 minutes. Troops are reinforcing. British quickly, heroically charging away. They shall be brave recipients of the Order of Sir Robin, I imagine, when they conduct such a heroic retreat. for the Fatherland pops up for SOLHillstreetblues. Heavy artillery going in against the position right here by the field and by the medic bunker. Pretty much leaving the field a moon crater. Nebelwerfers are still functional, though they're actually yet to kill anything, which is actually quite interesting. Minor fighting going on here. Poor MG position right there by AsiiDeathblow. Basically what he had done was he'd pretty much placed it right here, meaning anyone could advance closely up by the hedgerows and say lobbing a grenade, thus forcing away the MG. He should have placed it more towards here so it had a bit of coverage and would be harder to sneak up on. At least from one side. British though are advancing. Carlosred makes a move, flanking about the MG. Rifle grenades flying up, Bren guns are handing in some fun. But there is no armor that could actually, really make a successful assault here. But all of Carlosred's armor is far removed from this advance, meaning the infantry is going to go down, and meaning then when the armor moves in, they're not going to have the support they need. So that is definitely a bit of a botched assault, I think, by Carlosred in this case. Had the armor been moving in particular with the Cromwell command tank in support of the infantry, I mean, that would have been a lot more problematic for the Axis. And now we're seeing him floating over 1,000 manpower. My goodness. That's just wasteful. Grenadier went down. And we are seeing Royal Canadian Artillery, and we are seeing 105 Priest rolling in. Though that was actually an American self-proclaimed artillery piece. What they had, though, were, well, bishops and priests and what not. Almost the same, except with 25-pounder guns and the likes. Stoogs are quick to react, though, and overall, I mean, Carlosred did not really get much out of that assault. Bit of a shame again. Had the infantry been supported by armor, it would have been a much more ugly situation for the Axis right there. First as might have broken. Artillery going in again, very close, actually doing some damage, but fails. It looks like he might try and call in another priest. And basically just add in a rain of artillery against the Hun. But of course, question is, will he do that? And there we go. Second priest rolls out, ready to join the conclave. In this case, not so much about figuring out who's going to be Pope, rather than figuring out who's going to get killed. And artillery flying away, bombarding the Axis positions. There's a huge concentration of crouch right here, but so far the artillery actually seems not to be firing. And here I think, I mean, that was actually a major mistake conducted by Carlosred. 17. He didn't wait to, spot up, if there were any targets for him to fire away with his artillery at. He began firing without having an idea what to fire at. And that's definitely given the Axis a huge opportunity, because again, they don't have to worry about any of the artillery hitting them. So that was definitely a mistake, although we do see a Calliope now out for Don't Stop the Party, clearly intent on stopping the Germans. Party gun, it is advancing up. Artillery going in again, and right as the infantry is retreating right back to the command track. Oh dear, heavy losses. Brits dying in a storm of fire and death. Really nasty that. And we do see the mortar emplacement gone. We're seeing British and American tanks pushing away the Grenadiers, but definitely not working out. But also note, victory points are very swiftly ticking down for the Germans. They're less than 100. And note the British, they're barely below 500. Good lord. The Axis need to push forwards. They need to, something slightly more decisive. They can't just, hope for Grenadiers to sneak in constantly. They need partly to get the Nebelwerfers to actually kill something, which has largely been a bit there, not quite there. And SOLHillstreetblues need some Panzers. I think you need some Panzer Force or Panthers to try and break through. They need something that can actually make a solid attack, otherwise they do risk losing this to VPs. Oh, they actually forgot the mid-game announcers, my pardons, but I mean, concentration, not good for Jerry. Again, largely need some Panzers, and again, I do think that the defensive doctrine choice was a poor choice right there for SOLHillstreetblues. So there you go, but again, he needs some Panzers, this guy needs some infantry. For the Allies, Carlosred needs to get his artillery usage under control. It's a bit here and there, it's not quite targeted, it's just firing into the blind, and he's just wasting essentially all of the, well, about 1,200 manpower he spent on just the 2 priests on shooting into the blind. I mean, that's not good. Again, had he been firing in support of his assault, and again, that's the problem. There is no coordination between the different things you do. Infantry attacks, no armor support, no artillery support. Armor attacks, no support from another branch. Again, artillery fires, there's no infantry or no artillery nearby. I mean, there's just a jumble from Carlosred, and he's just launching into the blind, and he's just failing to hit anything. I mean, it's a bit of a waste, to be honest. The American player is definitely holding up better with a nice combination of Shermans and tank destroyers and infantry. He does need, I think, a medic station to sort of keep up with his infantry losses, locking down this area, which is a good choice, by the way. He might consider a machine gun emplacement, perhaps also here, sort of a bit covered up, perhaps covering up the flank there. That might actually making sure they can win the victory point fight, because the way that Carlosred is currently playing and not quite achieving success, there's a chance the Axis can actually make a recovery, despite again their sort of lack of overall punch and the fact that, I mean, it's a very slow approach going on from SOLHillstreetblues, who's pretty much forced to lay down a chain of flanks to advance, which again is not necessarily very effective either. But let's return to the fight. Pat gets a nice hit on the Cromwell right there. Axis advancing up the center, infantry, but they are under heavy artillery fire. And I do hear a V1 rocket going in. I wonder where that could be. Oh, he went for the 25-pounder gun, knocking it out, denying the British at least 1 artillery piece, but there are still 2 to go. And for some reason, that priest actually moved too far up ahead. I think Carlosred misclicked. Calliope firing towards the flank as the Germans try to take the victory point, and they succeed. The priest actually makes it out of the encounter with the German clergy, I think you could call it, who wishes to discuss religious differences and the art of artillery. Cromwell's firing away. Snipers doing what they can. More snipers arriving from the Germans. Both missed the retreating American sniper, and the Cromwell went down. At least a Cromwell command tank still there. The British look like to have been largely not doing so well all of a sudden. They're a bit broken now. Germans are quickly advancing. Right hand side, those being fortified by Dontstoptheparty. He's very much intent on stopping the German party, ensuring that they can't advance such. So definitely doing a great job in mining and all that. But they need to take back the center and this area, which is currently falling to the Germans. There we go, more artillery flying in an absolute desperate effort to force away the Hun from the vital victory point. And there we go, direct hit. Even does a few kills there. And there we go, Hellcats rushing forwards. Piet. But now the Hellcats are a problem. They're facing off against 3 Stooks from the front. That could very much... Although looks, one of Stooks went out of control, but still 2 left. And looks like one of the Hellcats could go down this very moment. Oh, the Hellcat was knocked out by British artillery. Allied War Machine is up. The question is if Allied War Machine would not have been better than field repairs for Dontstoptheparty. Firefly running support, and there we go. I mean, he's just spending out a ton of munitions all of a sudden, and things is not going to ultimately work. And there we go, Stoop down, heavy armored losses, no infantry support again for Deathblow. Had he been able to get some infantry up support again, had he, you know, gone for Blitzkrieg and got himself some stormtroopers, he might have done better there. I mean, their unit compositions are not quite rubbish, but they are a bit lopsided, and they do present some weaknesses which the Allies can exploit and to a certain extent are exploiting. More artillery getting called in. Or not. Sherman wreaking havoc. Niebler exposed. Heavy fighting towards the center victory point. 38 victory points for the Axis. Kämpft, Männer, kämpf. Something like that. Just kill some Yankees and some Tommies. You cannot lose now. First is getting blasted into oblivion by the Sherman. Further flying towards that victory point. The Germans are holding on quite desperately as a storm of artillery of rockets and shells is unleashed upon the Germans basically force them away from this area. But the central area and the right is still theirs. At least the Allies. You could also consider a mine there, just for the record. Rather than getting pinned down by Niedenwerf and MG42 fire. Not much infantry. Stug fighting against the Germans. German is definitely losing that one. Has not been upgunned. And there we go. Panzer X adding into the fun. Grenadier down. And question is if Don't Stop the Party might not have benefited more from infantry doctrine with his own artillery of a more direct kind. And perhaps more off-map combat groups. Or perhaps even airborne. Either way though, 2 sticky bombs on the Stug. Once more, field repairs. Goes up. The Stug is heavily damaged. And we could see a Rifleman squad going down. Oh, survives. And more artillery going in towards the center. Sniper went down to a German sniper, reading himself a bit too quickly, feeling a bit too confident. Hellcats rushing in. And more firing towards it, desperately trying to take that victory point, at least render it neutral. Very heavy fighting, very desperate, very tense. More Stugs are advancing. Starting to think that's at least one Stug company that's been lost right there by Deathblow. Sherman rolls forward again. Unable, in fact, to take this point. The MG bunker was able to actually suppress and pin them. We'd like to be seeing more artillery fire from Carlosred. And looks like, there we go, Stug went down. We could see Hellcat lost. Definitely not a good exchange for Don't Stop the Party. And there we go, the Stug gets the second Hellcat. Definitely some heavy losses. And we're seeing a bike moving forward. We could see an attempt to call in artillery on the priest, perhaps. Not. Apparently not. Oh well. And there we go. Calliope barrage, intent on holding a victory point. 9 points though left for the Germans. 9 points left for the Reich. Sherman versus Stug. Very tenuous. Central victory point is held by the Reich. Das Leibstandarte. Stug advances, trying to get the Sherman, possibly in the priest. Oh, we do see another Hellcat running up for Don't Stop the Party, and fighting continues towards here as both players are both sides are very much intent on getting that victory point. Hellcat continues his advance, flanking about the Sturmgeschützsphere. Rather than advancing up the bike here in a bit of trouble, going to get blasted, and there we go, good night. The Stug 4 basically being a, well, replacement for the Stug 3, not in the usual sense, but basically because factories for the Stug 3 had been bombed and they needed more Stugs, so they built a factory, well, converted a Panzer 4 factory to make Stug 4s. It was not quite, in fact, that it had some slight deficiencies compared to some of the later variants of Stugs, which actually, for example, had an additional MG, whereas the Stug 4 only had one. So, fun little fact there. Brits, though, continue to go down. It looks like the Axis are very desperately holding on to the left victory point and the center one. But the Americans are taking the center one. We are seeing a counterattack again, but running into a bit of trouble. And a Calliope rocket to try and stop the German advance in a manner most vicious and final. But will it be enough? And we're seeing an MG42 from Deathblow flanking about. Hellcats rushing in. Allied war machine. Oh, there's also Sherman. So he's a bit realizing he's a bit desperate. So he's just throwing in whatever he can afford. And Allied war machine certainly helps with that. But there we go. 2 pieces of armor lost. Rifleman could also go down for Don't Stop the Party. And there we go. Dead. Still 3 victory points left. Very, very close. I mean, if they can just decap, or at least take one more victory point, I mean, the Allies can win this. This is definitely going to be by razor's edge. More artillery firing. Overall, though, I mean, Carlosred is not really getting much out of it. And question is, if we couldn't, you know, have used it for better purposes, like some better infantry tactics, as some more armor. Engineers getting hunted down by grenadiers. Looks like the Allied effort has, to a larger extent, been broken by the Axis. be that the 1st SS might nonetheless be able to escape the gap. Although again, it is looking very close. They might not succeed. More bunkers going down the flank, providing heavy fire support. Register artillery protecting the central victory point. Stug advances up. Volksgun is flanking the Hellcats. Flank actually gets off a nice hit. And there we go, more fire from Allied artillery. We're seeing 3 priests. I actually thought they were limited at 2. That's actually a pretty bad move by Carlos. A very bad one to just spam artillery like that when there's clearly needs for other things to actually move forward and take the points. And interesting enough, he's not firing any of it towards this machine gun bunker, which has been causing him so much problems and making it very difficult for him to take this point. I mean, that's just not making any sense at all. Well, it seems clear that Carlos has lost it, tragically enough. And we're now seeing a Pershing actually arriving for Don't Stop the Party. Don't Stop the Party themselves has taken quite a beating again as Carlos shifted over to a more support role. It meant that Don't Stop the Party had to do more with the fighting, and that of course also increases the amount of casualties on him. And obviously that's actually what's pushing the advantage towards the Axis, because both Axis players have been trying to share the burden in their different ways. One infantry, one armor, but they have been sharing the burden. One has not been focusing fully on support. That is what happened here on the other hand with Carlos, which means that pretty much the Axis was slowly able to gain the advantage. Pershing pushing up here, but going to come under heavy fire from the flank and the pack, which rhymes. And there we go, the Pershing rolls out of control. Stug moves in against the highly undefended artillery pieces. Self-propelled artillery pieces, by the way. So that's definitely going to be a bit of a problem for the Allies. Riflemen sneaking in, but not looking too good. And let's go have a look at SOLHillstreetblues. Direct strike on the flak. And sending in the Jeep to take a point. The Sherman goes out of control as a pack gets, and unlikely that, yes, the Jeep is next. And looks like a rifle squad went down, possibly to own artillery. We are seeing GG going out all across. Bit of a shorter 2 versus 2, but there you go. British making an advance under support from artillery, but the artillery is very close to hitting their own men. And Propaganda War right there saves the day again. Had they been able to take that, that could very much have been victory. But again, it should have happened earlier. Again, it should have basically just been the artillery firing towards there. But for some reason, again, Carlos seems unable to coordinate his own forces, which is actually a bit curious. And there we go, another priest bites the dust. I'm just going to speed this up. And another firestorm going in there. Another attempt right here for the victory point. Obviously not going to work. And there we go. All leave. And there we go. The Allies were unable to close the gap, or at least hold it. And the 1st SS was able to escape the encirclement of the Falaise gap. I mean, it was an interesting match in different ways. I mean, and of course there's probably going to be some going, no, this fight, but it's actually, I mean, the players are reasonably higher level than that, but I mean, it does showcase some interesting things again. I mean, the Allies had the Axis had a decent start, but they rather became bogged down here by the mortar emplacement and essentially the Bocage fortress. And partly again, the problem for them was they should actually have shifted towards here and perhaps struck where, you know, again, there weren't that much heavy defences. But they did. In that case, they actually got ground down. They got very close to losing. The only thing that rather saved them was Carlos, I think. Carlos basically went too much defensive, supportive. Couldn't really figure out because, again, he kept attacking in a manner which, at least from my point of view, is uncoordinated. Again, sending in infantry, no armor, no artillery. Sending armor, no infantry, no artillery. Shooting the artillery, no infantry, no armor. There was no coordination between his different forces, and ultimately, that failed. In particular, since so much artillery was firing into the blind, not achieving very much, certainly not here with the bunker. And again, I mean, there just didn't seem to be any clear idea of what was going on. The American player held on, but he might have wanted a medic station. But ultimately, again, because Carlos was slowly getting ground down and slowly moving over to a more supportive role, more of the pressure ended up on the American player, meaning he could not fight on. Again, the Axis players, for their slightly curious unit compositions, though, did share the burden, and thus, in the longer run, were actually able to fight on. I mean, that was a vital difference. Though I would have liked to see Hillstreetblues having gone for some armor instead of that many flags. I think if they'd gone for armor, they might have actually broken through and actually won this earlier, or actually won perhaps a bit more convincingly instead of, you know, very much by a razor's edge. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed this match. If you did, why not subscribe, tell your friends. If you didn't, well, why not send a replay of your own or provide some feedback in the comments. Feedback is always appreciated. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers, and, you know, feel free to follow me on Facebook or Twitter.